everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome back to another video. It's no secret that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have been taking increasingly drastic measures lately to try to rework their public image. They've tried to set the reset button many times, as we covered in our Eras Tour video. But this is a whole new dynamic. They are trying a divide and conquer sort of a vibe, space, distance, doing their own independent projects. They're trying this out right now. They're being super obvious about it, maybe a little too obvious about it. We're going to be talking more about it in an upcoming video, but from a PR perspective, public image perspective, these are the top 5 recommendations I would give to Meghan Markle to try to actually successfully reset some of their image problems. First, Meghan really needs to pay closer attention to her styling. She's often overdressed at events, flashing lots and lots of jewelry, or not presenting herself in a polished manner when it calls for it. She definitely doesn't convey a professional vibe when she's in professional settings. And this is a huge problem. It just looks weird. It looks out of place to the public looking at these pictures in these press releases, no matter how good the things she may or may not be saying are, or her performance is in other areas. The pictures look weird because she's wearing a red spaghetti strap flamenco dancing inspired dress to a panel about empowering women in business space. It just doesn't vibe. Let's take Invictus as an example. In years past, she has shown up incredibly overdressed for a sporting event. Even just wearing heels at events like this feels out of place or just a little pretentious, a little snooty. Paired up with designer clothes that are ill-fitting, it just looks like she's there for pictures and only worried about what she wears, and it has nothing to do with the actual event. My advice would be to show up in some really plain, basic, straight-leg mom jeans, something that doesn't have an identifiable brand, and not leak the brand of what she's wearing. Wear sneakers of any kind and Invictus tops, Invictus shirts or fleeces or flannels or coats or hats, any sort of Invictus gear. She needs to go for it, needs to wear it. She needs to go for it and lean into, I'm here to support the brand of Invictus. The sporting event itself is why I'm here. I'm here to raise awareness to this thing. So I am wearing their gear and not drawing attention to what I'm wearing, because what I'm wearing is basic and boring. That's what she needs to do. She needs to hang back a little bit, not insert herself into any of the events. She needs to maybe bring care packages for people or volunteer alongside the plebs and do nothing else. No speeches, no mic time, no walking in front of veterans, none of it. She needs to sit back, hang back, and just be a supporter or a volunteer, a real volunteer. Maybe hand out some free t-shirts to the kids, something like that. She needs to really lean into those almost cliche PR tricks, because at this point, their image is so bad. It is at a crucial point. Her and Harry's popularity is critically low. And part of it is because of the way she inserts herself into events that are not her own. A total image reset around the Invictus presence would do her favors. Next, a change of hairstyle. It can be incredibly powerful for anybody to do a big change to their hairstyle, but it can be especially useful for a public figure to really change the vibe and mark the beginning of a new approach to things. It can really do wonders to send a fresh start sort of a message. And for Meghan, I've said this many times, she would look amazing with a lob, a really plain, simple, sleek, straight lob around collarbone length, maybe a little lower, would be just fine. But these really long tresses that she wears tend to look overdone and overwhelming to her. It would be slightly lower maintenance as a bonus, but really the most important thing for the shift of hairstyle is to give her something that's more flattering to her face. The really big, overwhelming hair and the really tight, slick back bun are what we often see her wearing, and neither of those really suit her face the best. She is widest at her jawline area for the most part, and she has a somewhat angular face. By going for a sleeker bob and just wearing it kind of plain and straight much of the time would allow for a better balance to her face. Visually, it would create balance with the hairline to chin and chin to the bottom of her hair or the length of her hair. And that would be a really nice balancing effect for her face in particular. Next up, I would recommend she save the jewelry for evening events. When she shows up overdone and wearing lots and lots of jewelry, even when she's dressed more casually, she still has on lots and lots of jewelry. It's seen as flashing your wealth, and it oftentimes isn't very appropriate for the occasion on top of it. I would recommend she save her fancier jewelry and all the extra gold bracelets and bangles for just evening events. During the daytime, maybe only wear the wedding ring and nothing else, or simple or even affordable earrings. This is a trick that Catherine, the Princess of Wales, does a lot. She wears fun earrings that are affordable and normal brands that she clearly just thought looked cool and bought, or that maybe were a gift to her from a friend or family member. She'll pair them up with even glamorous outfits. Now, Meghan doesn't need to copy that. She would probably get bad PR if it seemed like she was. But she could incorporate affordable jewelry or even smaller brands that are still affordable, because she talks so much about supporting women's businesses and just supporting women in general, women's voices and all these things. Why not support some affordable jewelry from a woman-owned business or something like that? Find one and really pick out some pieces with intention that will work well and wear them. Some things that are not over the top and overdone. She tends to miss the opportunity to communicate her values and back up her statements through her fashion and jewelry and accessory choices a lot. Even when she did this handbag investment and sort of like tried to act like she was collaborating with this brand of handbags, it still is a very, very expensive handbag. It's out of reach for a lot of people, even though it was attempting to present it as supporting women-owned businesses. So shifting this approach a little bit to wearing more relatable accessories, as well as choosing ones thoughtfully that can send a bit of a message or back up her general vibe that she tends to try to sell people on, would be very, very helpful. Fourth, very simple. Stop talking about thyself. Every single time she's asked a question, she pulls it back into herself and through her perspective. That's not always necessary. This can be a useful tactic if you're giving a speech to a large crowd, for example, because you want to demonstrate that you are connected to whatever it is that you're talking about or saying. Offering personal anecdotes occasionally can be helpful to personalize your message, to draw a connection that other people might also have similar connections to things. But Harry and Meghan do it entirely too often, and sometimes in ways that are really clunky and out of place and don't make sense. This leaves the public with the perception that they're only including these things either because they want to talk about themselves more, which is self-indulgent and never received very well, or because they simply don't know what else to say, which means they don't actually know what they're talking about all that much. They're not well educated or informed on whatever subject it is that they are discussing at any given time, so all they have to fall back on is their own stories or ideas. This is the problem Meghan has run into time and time again by repeating the same stories over and over of the dish soap commercial story or things like that. That if that's the only thing she has to talk about when it comes to women's empowerment and women's voices and things like that, that happened 30 some odd years ago, is no longer relevant to today. And if that was her peak feminism moment, then that achievement isn't really worth repeating. Furthermore, if you have nothing else to talk about or nothing else to add, then you don't deliver very much value. Harry and Meghan's personal anecdotes are also very far removed from what most people can connect to. Harry is a prince. Meghan and Harry are Duke and Duchess of Sussex. They are incredibly wealthy. They do not have very relatable anecdotes to offer people on the surface. Beyond that, they have spent so many years talking about themselves almost exclusively in a way that has really damaged their reputation and their public image. So in order to really push the reset on their public image now, for both Harry and Meghan, one of the main things they need to do is literally zip it when it comes to personal stories, anecdotes, or references. They need to stop altogether to create a real clear pivot away from their self-indulgent ways that they have become known for. And since they are both so notorious for spilling the beans on their personal lives or violating other people's privacy or sharing too much about themselves and their lives, in irrelevant ways, since they're so notoriously known for that. One of the most powerful things they can do in terms of resetting their public image would be to completely stop that altogether. Anytime they're asked a question that leans a little bit personal, they need to just immediately pivot it back out onto the event that they're at, or the reason why they're there, or some other element of the question. So let's just say, for example, they're at an Invictus event and somebody asks them about their children. Instead of going ahead and taking the bait, so to speak, and talking about their kids and themselves and hearing Meghan say, once again, as a mother, this is what my perspective on all this is. Instead of that, leave that all behind. Fresh start here. You really have to commit. Instead, they could simply say they miss them, but they've really enjoyed seeing the competitors' children light up watching their parent achieve something awesome or participate in such a wonderful thing, and that they're so proud that the event is so family friendly, that they look forward to one day bringing their kids to this family friendly event, or that they've really enjoyed volunteering, handing out shirts to the kids who are there to watch and cheer on their parent. Something like that would really drive home the point that they're no longer interested in talking about themselves. The fact that they continue to indulge in talking about themselves all the time, even when it's irrelevant, like Meghan Markle did at the Children's Hospital event, she really brought it back to herself and kept referencing herself and her friends, and it was just weird. So really drawing a line that era is over. We're no longer talking about ourselves in public. That would be very, very helpful for Harry and Meghan's image, and a powerful one, because they are so identifiable as the oversharing, overly self-indulgent couple. Finally, I would strongly recommend both her and Harry sponsor some sort of local youth organization where they can actually show up in real life and participate in, for example, things like environmental cleanups, actually fixing up a few youth centers. For example, Harry could make it his mission to improve or found a few youth centers around the areas that are in need. And he could participate in actually executing the establishment of these places. Meanwhile, the both of them could participate in actually mentoring some real youth groups out there participating in environmental cleanups or other things like sport activities or art activities. This would allow their public image to shift into some actual tangible real life stuff that they're doing, giving some of their time. That is something that people tend to respect, and also from a public image perspective, it's not something you can really argue with. They're donating their time to help out some underprivileged youth. That's very difficult to criticize. So things like that would be really, really beneficial for Harry and Meghan to do at this particular juncture where their image continues to be trash. Additionally, it would provide them with the opportunity to do something useful with their time and with their platform. It would show that their actions are actually backing up what they're trying to do. And the key would really be to not publicize it heavily, to not just have it be a one-off, we're going to sit and do a roundtable thing and tell everybody about it all the time and tell the same stories. No, rather providing and creating the spaces that they talk so highly about all the time. So imagine the contrast between these two things, okay? Previously, we saw Harry and Meghan attend a gala about African American art. We saw pictures of them at this glitzy exclusive event. I believe had some mic time at that event, unnecessarily. But imagine the contrast and the difference had they instead sponsored a few youth organizations to bring some kids who are interested in art, or even just some underprivileged youth center groups of children, sponsored them to come and see this art that they may never again have the opportunity to view. Providing that access to underprivileged youth would have been so much more profound, so much more in line with their image. It would have been actually doing good. And had they still attended the gala, nobody would have blinked twice or said anything, because they actually contributed something of value to their community, to children in general, to youth groups, did something nice for those kids or for those families, even providing access to or sponsoring the museum, having a free day for families who may otherwise not be able to afford to come and see this beautiful display of this huge collection of impressive African American art and history. Had they done something like that and then attended the gala, it would have been like, that's fine, that makes sense. But by just attending the gala and not participating in increasing access or awareness of this at all, it just looked indulgent and it didn't align with their supposed values of showing up and doing good. They didn't do any good by showing up to that. So by taking an approach of actually doing good and providing value to communities, to youth, to other organizations, they will boost their image a lot. Part of the problem with Harry and Meghan is that they haven't actually done all that much. Meghan seems to think and misunderstand grassroots initiatives by thinking that just paying for part of a playground to be built in a certain neighborhood is going to be the same thing. It's not. The way they talk about what they want to do creates an image of somebody who really wants to expand access to things and provide opportunities to people and create a more equitable world, like they always say. But they're not actually doing that through their actions. And when they have the opportunity to, like they were positioned to be able to provide or sponsor some sort of increased access to that amazing African American art and history exhibit that was on display. But instead, they just showed up for the gala. So making a shift in that sort of a way would obviously help. And that has always been something that has been a bit of a problem for Harry and Meghan in general. So that concludes my top 5 recommendations for Harry and Meghan trying to boost their image or shift their image once and for all into something much less negative. But I do have one more thing, and I didn't include it in my top 5 because I just don't see them ever actually doing it. I don't think that they actually would ever listen to this advice or do it in real life. I don't think they would. But the number one, if I could put top of the list, most important thing they could do to change their image now, it would be to apologize for speaking out about private family matters. To acknowledge that that was wrong to do and unfair to the other parties involved. They could even soften it a little bit for themselves because let's face it, Harry and Meghan have dug themselves so very deeply into this hole and have complained so very much and said so many lies, and so it's just been an egregious saga. Their assaults on the press, the UK public in general, just the most absurd thing I can think of, and the royal family and the staff, all of it has been so over the top and so bad, and so bad for their image. But clearly, Harry and Meghan were blind to that and the consequences of it. Clearly, they don't get it. And clearly, they're both struggling with some pretty high toxic traits in terms of their personality and their mental wellness in general. In order to do that, to be somebody willing to do what they've done, you have to be somewhat dissatisfied in general. So the reality of them saying sorry for what they've done or walking that back at all would be a very difficult task for them. Just being realistic about it. It would be very hard for them. So from a PR perspective, the angle would have to be, whomever gave them that advice, the angle would have to be that they could soften it by saying that the mental health challenges they were going through at the time clouded their judgment to the point that they erroneously attacked lots and lots of people in the press and in the media because they were in a state of fight or flight and anxiety, and they were so stressed and tortured mental health-wise that they took these drastic steps that now, in retrospect, they regret. They could soften it by taking that sort of an approach. Not that I endorse that or think that that would be like the right thing to do. The right thing to do would to just shut it all down and apologize profusely and take full accountability. But realistically, that will never happen with Harry and Meghan. But what they could do is apologize for speaking out about private family things and any pain or damage that they caused, speaking poorly about people who, in Harry's book, for example, that didn't deserve it and didn't consent to it, that he acknowledges that violation of privacy was not something that he, now would support or choose to do, and that they have grown since then or something. They could try really hard to salvage it in some sort of a way like that and frame it that way. Then maybe they'd be willing to do it. If they could push some of the blame or responsibility for the mistakes they made off onto a mental health issue, I think that they would be more willing to apologize. Like I said, I don't think that would necessarily be the right thing to do, but it might be the only way that Harry and Meghan would be able to swallow that pill. What do you think? What do you think about those top 5 recommendations? Do you think we will ever see the day where Harry and Meghan apologize or walk back these mistakes that they've made? That's it for today's video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a happy day ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye!